What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Recap with Mo. We getting ready to get down into this breakdown of Bel-Air Season 2, Episode number 7, titled Under Pressure, right? So, but before we get into the synopsis of this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you can stay in the know of what's going on over here on this channel. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the synopsis of this episode. So it states that external dilemmas throw Carlton and Will off track and prevent them from fully preparing for the Founders Award. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this episode. All right, so this episode begins with Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil preparing a breakfast for both Will and Carlton to congratulate these guys for competing against one another or even being chosen for what's called Founders Award, which is something that goes on at Bel-Air Academy, right? So Aunt Viv is a little concerned, though, of this whole situation because of the two going against one another. They haven't had the best of times in previous times when they've battled against one another. So she's already a little bit concerned. Of course, Carlton is throwing out the normal cliches against Will, talking about basketballs, having aspirations of going to the NBA. Finally, you're not thinking about something, you're thinking of something other than basketball, or getting a higher GPA, shit like that. But at the same time, it is what it is, man. And they're men, man. So we're going to be competitive. But, Aunt Viv is a little nervous because, sometimes it can go too far. But anyway, from there, man, we see them at a golf course. And at the golf course, Uncle Phil has them out there because this is part of the competition as well. So he's trying to give them a hands up, specifically Will. So on the golf course, Will cannot get the handle of the ball. He's still not hitting, he's not getting the ball in place where it needs to be. And Carlton is still, throwing insults at him like, I got 10 years ahead of you, whoop, whoop. So Will is like, okay, it is what it is. I'm going to catch up with you. But, you still haven't caught up with me. But your height, the normal shit. So Uncle Phil comes over and he said, it's cool, Will. We're going to show you the ropes and how to work through it. And then he also conveyed to him about the golf course being the best place, to make business deals. And I agree. You know what I'm saying? That is a place where a lot of business deals get done. So, if Will doesn't win the Founders Award, he can still, pick up his skills where, he has the opportunity to meet and greet on the golf course. You know what I'm saying? So from there, man, we get Uncle Phil gets a phone call. And by the way, he's talking on the phone call. G down at the bottom, the butler, he's down there and he lifts his head up like he has this look of concern on his face. So I was like, okay, what's going on? So the next thing we see is Uncle Phil saying, are you ready? And he was like, yeah. So they end up at this restaurant where Aunt Viv is sitting at a table with a young guy, and G is coming into the restaurant along with Will, Uncle Phil, and Carlton. And Will is like, you got this, G. So we find out that this is Godfrey's first time meeting his son named Frederick. And I was like, oh, hell, like a grown-ass man. So the next thing we see is Godfrey sitting at the table with his newfound son. So it's an awkward conversation. His son is just pretty much looking at him. He pretty much conveys to him that, I pretty much made this idea up in my mind that you didn't exist. And Godfrey is like, I'm glad that you were adopted very early. And, it was just a very awkward conversation. Of course it would be like that. You got a grown-ass son. You've never seen them before. They've never seen you. They don't even know you existed. And now all of a sudden, a phone call, a flight over, you're now in the States and you're staring your dad in the eyes. Like, that has to be a hard thing to go through. But anyway, going from there, talking about one father to son situation, we head over to back to the crib where we see Uncle Phil coming into the room of Carlton, and Carlton is working on, it looks like, a resume or something for the competition. So Uncle Phil comes in and, he's asking what he's doing. Carlton is updating his information, and he was like, I'm glad that you're doing that. He said, I hope that you don't mind that I'm giving, Will a little extra encouragement because of, it's quite a bit of a stretch for this whole Founders Award program. So, and Carlton initially is like, yeah, I mean, it's cool. Obviously Will needs your help more than I, so yeah, it's great. I think it's cool. But deep down inside, you could tell that Carlton, by his disposition, you could tell that this man does not appreciate that at all. Like, he feels slighted. And you could tell by his body language, like, just placing myself in his position, like, I would feel some type of way as well. Like, shit, I mean, my dad is getting ready to, even though he's my cousin, don't root for, quote unquote, the enemy, like, or my competition. Like, we're not trying to do that. Like, let's go ahead and, let me win this, and then we can encourage Will next go around, but not this time. So anyhow, going from there, now we see Will going over to the record shop to hit up Jazz. He's inquiring about what's going on with he and, Hillary, and Jazz is like, I didn't know you were so concerned or involved in our relationship or concerned. And Will is like, yeah, I am. Like, all she been talking about is you, thinking about you, which the nigga was lying. Which he was lying, of course. And he was telling the same very thing to Hillary and, talking about space and shit like that. Whoop, whoop, whoop. But all he's trying to do is play matchmaker. And, Hillary is just like, I just want him to be, a solid person, something, do something on his own. Like, let's make this work. Like, literally anything, just plan a date, do something. So Will goes back to the record shop, and now he's trying to convey to Jazz, hey, you need to do something, simple, you need to initiate the date and then just call her. You know what I'm saying? And she'll go. So Jazz calls her up, and of course, Hillary is like, of course, you know what I'm saying? I'll go with you. So they set a date at 8 o'clock. So the next thing we see is Uncle Phil coming into his office with his coworker, James, talking about, what the hell is going on? Like, where are we on, getting Garrison Automotive, who happens to be a major client of theirs for the firm. And, he's afraid that, James is afraid that if they're not able to get this client back, that they will end up being, taken over, through an acquisition. So it's a must need at this point for James. And he was like, I hope the hell you get this together. And Uncle Phil pretty much tells this man, like, how many times have I let you down before? Just allow me to get this done and do what I say I'm going to do. It's just taking me a little more time to get it done, but I'm going to get it done. So James is like, you better get it done. I'm like, who the hell are you? Who died and made you king, bro? Like, I got this. I hate when folks do that, man. But anyway, I'm putting my trust in you, Uncle Phil. I hope it pans out, bro. But man, let me just go move on, man. Let me go ahead and move on, man. All right, so the next thing we see, Aunt Viv, she's a little upset because Janice, who's her boss, pretty much, been dragging her about this whole art gallery or art show or some shit like that. And she's talking about, it's cool, but it's not a full entree. So Hillary comes in and she's like, is she still going on and on about this? And she was like, yeah, and she's really talking about this specific painting. And Hillary's like, what the hell? Like, that's been the talk of the town. Like, you got so many likes on social media specifically for that painting alone. So when she shows Aunt Viv is like, dang, like, for real? So, Hillary, who's the social butterfly, is going to show her mom pretty much how to use social media to connect to her client base and, people who are feeling the same way. So I thought that was pretty cool. Definitely a way for mom and daughter to connect, right? So moving on from there, we see Uncle Phil. He's calling Will, to see where he is, because he's supposed to be working with him for the Founders Award. And of course, Will is not available because he, instead of putting the Founders Award first, he's actually trying to get his hooping on, which takes me back to the beginning of the episode where Carlton was pretty much, his aspirations. Like, are you a little more concerned about basketball, or are you concerned about, your GPA or scholarly things of that nature, things that are going to prepare you for the future. So, he's sort of falling into what Carlton was saying about him initially. So, and it's going to show later on in this episode. So from there, we see Carlton. He's setting up his display for the competition, and here comes Lisa, and Lisa's trying to avoid Drew, which, Drew tries to get her attention, and finally he does. And Drew is like, hey, I know you've been trying to avoid me since that whole fight went down with Carlton. And she was like, well, Carlton is my friend, Drew, like, and I don't fuck around. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mess around with bullies, right? And he was like, no, I apologize, like it will never happen again. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And going from there, Drew then turns around with Lisa, and they pretty much ask, where's our BCS representative, who happens to be Will. And Will, of course, is not there. Once again, he's MIA. So I'm like, what the hell? Like, Will, you got to represent at some point. You got to grow up, bruh. But anyway, we'll see what's to come. So next we see Uncle Phil. He's walking with this nice looking woman, man. I can't remember her name, man. So it's a law firm he's at right now. So they're trying to entice Uncle Phil to come over to them and start his own law firm through them, with some of the top attorneys in the country as well as in the world. So I was like, damn, like, okay, Uncle Phil, I see you, bro. So let's move on, man. So the next thing we see is Jeffrey and his newfound son, Frederick. I almost feel like I'm getting ready to sing that song by the Brat Fontify where she said my homie name, what is that name, Jay, and his newfound friend. But anyway, man, so they come inside of the crib, man, and Jeffrey pretty much conveys to him that he handles the family affairs, like everything in between. So he was like, damn, I didn't know we were coming inside of a castle or nothing like that. So anyway, Viv and Hillary, they show up, and, they're just talking, and Hillary's like, okay, I see the accent. So she's real warm, man, and allows, the guy to feel a little fun in the house, you know what I'm saying? Because, all this time he's been dealing with a more serious situation with his father, but now he gets to see the people that he works with, and the love that they're bringing to him and welcoming him to LA. So from there, man, oh, by the way, did y'all catch that shade at the end of the part where they was like, you're part of the family too? And Frederick was like, that's something definitely new to me. And I was like, shit. And then he looks at his dad like, I was like, man, that's shady, bro. But, man, moving from there, man, we head over to the schoolhouse where we see Carlton and the rest of these guys who are going up, competing against one another for, this competition. So, of course, Carlton is putting on, everything that he could possibly put on, talking about he's good friends with the Obamas, mentioning them in his... So, of course, Lisa's like, Negro, please do not use the Obama's good name for your antics right now. But anyhow, Will shows up late, as we already knew he was going to, he was going to show up late. And of course, he's unprepared because he hasn't taken the time to do it because he's been dealing with basketball, of course. So, of course, when he shows up, he's acting as if he got something in his bag, but he really doesn't. And he says, look, I don't have anything. I don't have a speech. it's just me. So of course Carlton is looking with a side eye at him at this time, like, nigga, like, you knew you weren't going to take this seriously, and now you're showing up and you're embarrassing yourself, but not only yourself, but you're embarrassing me as well. So from there, he starts going into this spiel about his mom, always raised him to be this. Like, bruh, that's not what they got you in this competition for Founders Award. What they need to hear is, how is it going to benefit me and my class? But unfortunately, he hasn't prepared for shit, so he can't really give them what they're looking for. And the Asian chick in the front ain't having it, because she's like, hey, what do you feel about this subject, right? And he was like, so, man, look, let me move on, man. But like I said, the moral of the story is, just have your shit together. Have your shit in order. You know what I'm saying? Let's move on, bro. So after he finishes his whole little dialogue there, of course, Carlton comes in, and he was like, after that moment right there, pretty much throwing shade towards his cousin Will for not being prepared, he gets on his soapbox and tries to take advantage of the opportunity, of course, that's been given to him, wholeheartedly by Will. But of course, while he's talking, he notices everyone is looking at their cell phones. Everyone's been, notified of a message. So when they go to their cell phones, there's this video feed of Carlton and the guy that happens to be heckling him at the beginning of this scene. And they're actually singing this rap song, and they're using the N-word, I guess they're singing the song, and Carlton is just, going in with them. And Will comes in on that same video, and he said, no, y'all not saying the N-word. Look at me being conservative with my thoughts here, because I've been saying the N-word all this video, and now I want to say the let me so yeah, man, so it makes Carlton look, weak, and it seems like he's accepting, he's accepted of these guys calling him or utilizing the N-word in front of him. So it makes him look bad, and he's embarrassed. And of course, Carlton is not feeling it right now, because this was his time to shine. And of course, when it was his time to shine, somebody took it away from him. Unfortunately, he's going to point the finger at the wrong person, but we're going to go ahead and get into that soon enough, right? So let's move on. All right, so from there, we see Uncle Phil. He's coming in. He's excited about the deal that was just offered to him. And Aunt Viv is like, wow, I ain't never seen you this excited in a while. And she was like, I'm excited, but should I be that excited that another woman got you all worked up? and he pretty much lets her know. And I love this about black love, bro. He just pretty much told this woman, look, ain't no woman ever had me like that but you. You know what I'm saying? So, fellas, go on and let your women know how you feel about them. It's good, man. So anyway, they sit down. He said it just pretty much feels well to, to be desired, to be wanted. And they're pretty much laying out the red carpet for him. And from there, we see Viv, she's going live on social media, just pretty much conveying how she feels about, putting herself out there, putting her art out there, and not feeling appreciated. So she's getting a handle to this whole new social media thing for her. And just, she starts to see the people, throwing the hearts up for her, like, meaning they like her stuff. So it makes her feel some type of way. It makes her feel good, you know what I'm saying? So she's getting... so she feeling something she ain't never felt before. But from there, we head over to the school building with Carlton, and Carlton is picking up his flyers off the floor, and the guy that was in the video with him stated that he went ahead and withdrew his name from the situation, and Carlton pretty much says to him, like, okay, it is what it is. Your mom is a trustee. You got privilege. And, he's pretty much alluding to, you probably the person that did it to begin with. Then the next thing we see is both Will and Carlton. They coming back to the crib, and Carlton is pissed off, of course, because of what just transpired. And Will is trying to tell him, "Hey, son, I didn't have nothing to do with it." But at the same time, Carlton is still trying to deflect. Like, I actually care about this shit. Will actually came unprepared. This didn't have nothing to do with that video, Carlton. The issue is that's who you were, and then you didn't want that shit to come out. Now all of a sudden you mad because it came out, and people are judging you about your actions. Just own up to your shit once again. But both of these Negroes need to own up to what they did. Will was unprepared. Carlton was, whatever he is, you fill in the blank. And see, this is when it hit the fan for me. So, of course, it came out that Uncle Phil was not very supportive. Initially, he really wanted Will to pull up out of this competition because he didn't think that he would take it serious enough, or that he wasn't organized enough to, handle this type of competition. And, of course, Will conveys that to Aunt Viv, and Aunt Viv is like, no, that cannot be true. But, of course, it is. So then we get to the point where at least Doc, that's what Will says to Uncle Phil, at least Doc believed in me and told me to stay in the competition. So, of course, Uncle Phil was like, how dare you, Negro? You really going to use that name in this house? You going to use your lips to form those words in this house? Let's see how much he going to back you up when I start putting money in his bank account every month. I was like, damn. So I was like, all right. Uncle Phil trying to put a little bass in his voice with it, man. You know what I'm saying? Will look at him like, you better take some of that, you better take some of that bass up out your voice, homie. But anyway, man, let's move on, bro. So next we head over to the restaurant with both Hillary and Jazz. He's taking her out to a restaurant, which happens to be her favorite restaurant spot. And she asked him, pretty much, how did you know? And he was like, me, I got you. You know what I'm saying? So, she's pleasantly surprised about that. From there, we head over to Will, who's talking to the guys who play basketball with him. So they're talking about this party or something like that, this little party or get together. And he pretty much tells them, y'all can ride with me, essentially. That's pretty much what he says. And they were like, dang, this thing got everything in the vehicle. But anyway, so they drive, they ride out. And the next thing we see is Frederick. So we're back at the Banks crib, and we see Frederick looking at all the pictures on this bookcase, and he sees a picture of his dad, Will, and Carlton. So as he's looking at the picture, his father comes in, Jeffrey, and he's talking to him a little bit, and then Frederick is like, I think I need to go home. Like, he's feeling some type of way because he sees that he has this relationship with, Will and Carlton. But he's lacked that relationship all his life, when he's pretty much in his head. Remember, going back, he's pretty much had to believe that his father didn't exist. So Frederick is pretty much telling, Jeffrey that, it is weird to me because you're so freaking important to everybody but me. Because, I'm hearing all these great things about you, but in my mind, it's hard for me to even fathom that you are that dude that they're talking about, because that same dude would have looked for me as his son. So next we head over to back out there with Will and the crew. And, Will are having a conversation, and he's just pretty much telling him what he had to do in life to get to where he is. So Will is pretty much conveying to the guys that, hey, I'm really from Philly. Like, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, but I'm telling you guys that I'm really from Philly. So they say, all right, respect, bro. So while they're talking it up, Jackie rolls up, and Will lays a big one on him, and he was like, damn, girl. No, I think it was the flip side. I think Jackie put the lips on him. So, she was like, you try to party with me tonight? And he was like, okay, but I'm sort of in the middle of something. And so Jackie was like, no, I see dudes try. I know when dudes are trying to blow me off. Now, she been drinking a little bit, and she pretty much says, F you, Bel-Air. And he was like, what? Like, what the hell's going on? But of course, she's tipsy at this point, bruh. So, you know, so from there, we head back to the Banks crib where we see Viv and Carlton there talking. And pretty much he's talking about dropping out of the competition at this point. And he's like, look, I'm considered a sellout. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Like, Negro, you've been doing this for the longest. This ain't the first time, Negro, that you've heard that you were a sellout. So now he's in his feelings, and our Viv is still trying to encourage him to stay in the competition. And then she's also trying to put in a good word for Will, just pretty much stating to Carlton that, look, he's just trying to fit in. This is hard on Will as well. So she's trying to, play for on both sides. You know what I'm saying? So, but Carlton ain't hearing that shit. He's still talking about himself. He's talking about Yasmin. He's talking about everything in between. So, also right here, Arville pretty much states that, hey, everybody makes daggone mistakes, which is true. The only difference is, Negro, your mistakes were caught on camera for everybody to see. So it is what it is. You might as well get over it. That is what it is. And you just have to get used to it, because that is social media, and that's the world that we live in today. I wish we could just go back sometimes, man, because shit, I mean, sometimes you be wanting to wild out, but you can't really wild out like you used to, because everybody got out a daggone camera phone. So, I mean, I miss the days, man, that you used to be able to do something, get away with it, and nobody would hear about it for about 40, 50 years. By that time, shit, you almost about to die. So so you really don't care at that point. But anyway, man, so from that point, we head back over to the party. Well, we see old girl Jackie. She's pretty much tore up from the floor up at this point. She's gone, man. She's knocked out. And Will is concerned, and he was like, Doc is going to be pissed as hell because of this situation. And the guys that roll with him, they pretty much jettison. They say, hey, we're going to, on that note, we about to head up out. So from there, Will gets ready to take her back to the crib, and then we see the restaurant scene with Jazz and Hillary. Now, Jazz and Hillary, they've had their own issues within their relationship, so now they're trying to get it back on board. So now this is a part I really didn't appreciate in the episode, because it pissed me off quite a bit. So number one, Jazz is paying for the meal, of course. So the waitress comes back to the table and she says, sir, would you happen to have another card? Assuming that the Negro didn't have no money on his account, because you could tell when she came back and she asked him, did he have it? And he said, just rerun it. This chick never reran the card. And this has happened to me before, even though I always have money on my card. I've never had a time where we were going out to eat and we didn't have money on the card. That's not going to happen. Not in my house. So with that being said, even if I needed to transfer the funds, I'm going to make sure that we have enough money before I give whomever's taking my card to, run that transaction. So I believe Jazz in this situation when he's telling her, hey, just go and rerun the card. I don't think this man would have went through all of this to set up this date with Hillary, a girl that he's trying to get back into good graces with. Now, all of a sudden, at the end of the date, nigga, you can't pay for the date? Like, that's a no-brainer at this point. So of course, the waitress to me was totally disrespectful, because she should have at least listened to, what Jazz had told her, tried to go and rerun the card, but instead of doing that, she embarrassed this man in front of his date. And furthermore, Hillary, who did not want to be embarrassed, this is her favorite spot, her favorite restaurant. Instead of listening to Jazz, she turns around and pulls her card out instead. I got it. And that pissed Jazz off. Shit, it pissed me off as I was watching it. I was like, hold on, Hillary, just let this man handle his business. See, I ain't gonna get on my soapbox, but I'm just telling you, ladies. I know there are some no good Negroes out there. I got it. I understand it. But there are also some great Negroes out there, some great brothers out there that handle their business. I just happen to be one of them, so I can speak. But for give the brother an opportunity to prove that, hey, I got this shit in order, because now Hillary is looking like, is this gonna work? Like, Negro, you can't even pay for my favorite restaurant. Like, you can't even pay for a meal, Negro. Like, I'm like, shit, this is messed up. But anyway, so from there, man, we head back over to Doc's house where Will is dropping off, Jackie. And of course, Will is nervous because, he really doesn't want to mess up anything that he got going on with the B-ball team. So when he drops Jackie off at the house, Doc is like, hey, thank you, I appreciate you. Just chill for a moment and I'm going to come back out here. So I was like, oh, man. Hopefully he ain't going off on Will. So going from there, so next we see Will and Doc. They're having a heart-to-heart, and Doc is pretty much letting him know, the situation with Jackie, is pretty much essentially is his niece, but he pretty much raised her as his own, and he said, we're family. What else am I going to do? If my family needs me, I'm going to be there. And, I'm going to just say kudos to Doc, because a lot of men wouldn't do that, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of brothers that I do know would do that. So Will pretty much lets Doc know that if it wasn't for Uncle Phil, there's no telling where he would have been, in a jail cell somewhere, dead. But he's listening to Doc, and he's also thinking about his situation as well. Like, as a family unit, we can do a lot of things together. We can help one another, assist each other in our times of need. So going from there, and I love the transition from that point to this point. So now we see Frederick. He's walking in the foyer of the Banks home, just, going over this whole situation where he just pretty much told Jeffrey, his father, that, hey, I'm ready to go back home. But while he's standing there, Uncle Phil walks in, and Uncle Phil is like, okay, let me talk to you for a moment. I know you had this upbringing, the people that adopted you, whoop, 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 and what you lived in. And he pretty much told him he lived in a 2-bedroom situation where he came from. And, but his education and everything, his private education and all that shit like that was paid for by, Jeffrey. All of that stuff that was going down behind the scenes that he never knew about. All of the gang violence and all the stuff that he was around, how he was able to avoid those things, all of that came because of Jeffrey. That hand, that invisible hand that he never saw. So, even with his mom's situation or his adopted mom's situation, where groceries were always on the table, heat, lights, and everything was on, everything was because of Jeffrey. And he was like, damn, that was because of him? And Uncle Phil pretty much has to tell him, yes, he's pretty much been there all your life. Even though he wasn't there physically, he was there. And so, you have to respect that, man. So I think that really, was an aha moment for Frederick. Like, and he said to Uncle Phil, like, I appreciate that. Thank you. And Uncle Phil just simply wanted Frederick to understand and know who his dad was back then, throughout his days, back there, back home, and even today as he stands in front of him today. So I thought that was great for Uncle Phil to do that for Jeffrey. So, all right, so now we head over to Hillary's spot with Jazz. So this part was, a little, it went on a little bit too long, but anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. So Jazz is still pissed off at the fact that Hillary did not allow him to use his card or prove the point to her that he had the money there to, pay for the date. I've already, spoken on that. Let's move forward. Now, I did see Hillary's point of view in all of this as well. Like she said, I'm not into the superficial shit, I'm not into the superficial shit at all. So, and I don't, and honestly, truthfully, I don't believe that this Hillary right here, not the one from the real show, but this Hillary right here, Coco Brown, I don't think she's into, that at all. I believe that she is who she says she is. I just don't believe that she allowed him to to just be the man in that situation, in that context that transpired at the restaurant. Outside of that, I don't think she really cares about the money game, because if she really cared that much, Jazz, she wouldn't be involved with you at no point. She wouldn't be seen with you at no point, period. So I can understand him being pissed off about it, but at some point, bro, you need to let it go, and just check your manhood at the door. It is what it is. Chop it up. Be pissed off about it. But at the same time, Hillary has to understand a man's plight as well. Like, at the same time, she has to see his vantage point as well in all of this. So I thought that it went on a little bit too long, but long story short, she pretty much opened the door for him to exit. And he was like, pretty much, I'm not good enough for you. And she was like, okay, well, you can see yourself on out. All right, so back at the schoolhouse, Will is walking down the hallway and overhears Drew bragging about Carlton's humiliation. So during the Founders Award race. So Will confronts Drew about leaking the footage, but Drew thinks that Will should just thank him, and he's confident that Will can't prove a thing, that he leaked the video at all. But I knew it wasn't Will, and I also knew it wasn't old boy in the beginning that was heckling, Carlton. I knew it possibly was the guy that Drew that was dealing with Lisa. So I'm wondering how this is going to turn out in the next episode. But anyway, let's go. So from there, man, we head over to the gym with Will, and he is finally getting to start on the basketball team at this point. Doc calls him out instead of Brian. He was like, what the hell is Brian? It doesn't really matter. You getting ready to start. So go on out there, Will, and show them what you got. So from there, we see Carlton. He's back at the crib, and he's making, he's doing a live at this point, just pretty much telling people his truth, as this generation loves to do. And, he's just telling them about his experience. And, and he pretty much states that there are a million things that are never caught on camera, but, they happen. And everybody at school, they're checking it out. So once he gets done with the video, he logs out, of course. And then he heads to the closet to do what he does. And you already know what that is. So I'm going to go ahead and censor that part out. But, so, he takes one to the head, man. So, all right, so that's pretty much the end of the episode. As always, please like and subscribe to this channel. If you have yet to subscribe to this channel, please do so. So with that being said, I'm getting ready to sign up out of here. Peace.